Good afternoon, dear friends of International DataSpaces Association. Warm welcome from my side to this great event today, IDSA Strategic Overview. So this is an in-between event which we felt was necessary these days, as we do not have the opportunity to meet in person. So usually we would have had our IDSA winter days shortly before Christmas. This is not possible, and we are currently moving them to late February. So we are currently checking the date and also the circumstances. But we did not want to lose track and the connection to all of you. So therefore, we decided to have a new event, which is called IDSA Strategic Overview. And we did this for a reason, because we have reached a certain steady state of the organization, so that we can now really focus on delivery, on adoption, and bringing really the IDSA achievements and assets to life and to commercial use. And we want to explain today, what is there, what can be reused, where you can participate, how you can co-create, data sovereignty and data spaces, and, what you really can reuse to make data economy. So therefore, we have presentations only from the association. So we have a lot of other events where we ask our members and those outside our membership, which are adopting IDSA on stage. We have the DataSpaces dialogue. We have the unboxing DataSpaces events. The next will be on 16th of December with an interaction with Catena-X. Before we had, so some weeks ago, we had the unboxing DataSpaces event with mobility DataSpace, and we will have others in the upcoming weeks. And there are several other opportunities to stay connected. So we have regularly our Q&A session. So if you really want to know how to run your IDS-based data space, and we have a really cool event to come, the second edition of the Data Sharing Winter School. So this is, it was supposed to be a event linked to academia, to students, to postdocs, graduates and professionals. It is still like that, but we have, really more focus also on the professionals. To really retrieve a lot of background, thorough, comprehensive background information on data sharing. And this is now really a winter school. So you can also even earn ECTS credits for your studies, and this is impressive. So please have a look at the Data Sharing Winter School, December 7th till 9th. So roughly 2.5 days of really intense interaction with data space content. So I don't want to steal too much time. So we will set the scene first, and then we will really have a deep dive in all the assets and achievements which we do have in IDSA. And I'm happy to welcome on stage all my dear colleagues from the head office. But first, I'm as eager as you to listen to our dear president of IDSA, Reinhold Achatz, who's really fighting for IDSA in different contexts in Germany, on European level. He is the man behind mobility data space to make this happen, but he's also fighting on international stage, making the link to other continents and ecosystems like China and Japan. So I'm happy, Reinhold, that you are with us with IDSA, that you are such a strong supporter, And well, I will just hand over to you to well, give your welcome and setting the scene. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Lars. And I think we really can say, and you mentioned it already, we are living in exciting times. I think it's really that we really create already a lot of momentum. I think decades ago, the internet was generated, and now it's spread, and now then basically the platforms were defined by big companies. And with the federated DataSpaces, we basically generate a totally new endeavor, basically. And this is basically the opportunity for everybody to scale up, because in platforms, obviously, platforms provider invite others to share data and share their data. In DataSpaces, everybody can share its own data by themselves, basically, as an equal opportunity. Everybody is able to step in on the same level. Everybody has the same opportunity, and we are supporting the European values. I think this is really a big paradigm shift, and we see more and more momentum. And as Lars mentioned, we are not only gaining momentum in Europe, we are as well gaining momentum in other areas of the world. So we have very high interest in Japan. We have very high interest in very good discussions in China. We're talking to American companies and America-based companies. Even the big hyperscalers are now very interested, and I'm as well talking to CEOs of relevant software companies. So really, we have a lot of momentum now generated. And now it's very important that we leverage this momentum, because eventually it's not only about technology. Eventually, it's really about generating business based on data. So what we would like to offer is basically the opportunity to everybody, to small companies, to startups, but as well to big players, to participate in DataSpaces and through sharing data, generate new business models. And eventually this is something which is not only important for the single companies. I think this is as well important for the countries and the continent participating. So as I said earlier, we're living in exciting times. We have a huge opportunity to get a standardization on sovereign data sharing, and we should not let it go. And for that reason, I think we really would like to generate a strategic overview today, what is going on and how you can participate. So thank you very much again for your support. Thank you very much for your participation. And with you together, I'm looking forward to an exciting event today. And with this, I go back to Lars.
Thank you so much, Reinhold. And with that, I am happy to introduce the motivation for our event. So I want to paint the big picture of trust, interoperability, and governance of data spaces. And I try to share my screen. Let me check. Okay, obviously the wrong screen. So can someone from the tech team perhaps support me?
Lars, please, in the right panel, go on sharing, and below the show button, there's a screen drop-down menu.
Yes.
And there you can select the other screen.
Where is it to be? Sorry.
In the right panel, there's a section called sharing, and below the show button, there is a screen drop-down menu.
Okay.
There, now you have selected both screens. Obviously the wrong one.
Yeah.
Obviously the right one.
Should work. Yes.
Thank you very much, Lars, and yeah, good luck and all the best for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you can see me, hear me, and see my slides in full screen, so everything is set. So, yeah, well, IDSA, International DataSpaces Association. Obviously, we should talk about data spaces. We've learned in the last years that data spaces are obviously a game changer for data economy. We are on stage since roughly 6 years with IDSA right now, and it was not like that in the very beginning. So, well, I remember very well the times where nobody really knew what we are talking about. So what are data spaces? Why do we need them, and what is it? That has obviously changed, so even tremendously, because data spaces are to be announced everywhere. The term is spreaded widely, and well, this is good because data spaces is really a paradigm shift, something new, how to share data in an ecosystem of unknown partners with unknown data endpoints, and this opens completely new opportunities for companies to create value, to co-create value in an ecosystem which is a lot larger than ecosystems before. So following traditional paradigms of data management and data sharing, with like central companies being in charge of everything, a focal company, well, like governing and dominating a network. So this is no longer the way to share data, and therefore we need something new. So because it's all about valuable data sharing, data as an economic asset, they really have true big value, and therefore it is well, no longer fun just to share data. You have to really be able to share data without regret, and therefore you need well, to do it in a certain way. And therefore we do have data spaces, right? So protected environments in which participants can freely share data. So I always say, like, without regret. So it's okay because I know what's happening. Yeah. So because they are adhering to clear rules that well protect that data sharing without regret, and well, we call it data sovereignty. So the originator of the data, the provider of the data, decides what happens throughout an end-to-end secure data supply chain with the data set. So clear obligations, usage constraints can be attached to the data set. And with such a data space in place, we can really ensure transparency and fairness. And on this base, we can really enlarge the pool of data and thus generate economic value. And to be said and to be added, more value than we would have been able to create in traditional data sharing scenarios. That is the beauty with data spaces. This is the game changer which we do have. So what is the role of IDSA in that context? We are here to insert trust in data spaces and to guarantee data sovereignty. And let's make it as easy as it is. Imagine you are a company which has valuable data set, which wants to combine this data set, share the data set with others, add applications, business logic, does some magic, and then create value. That is what it's about in data ecosystems and in data economy. But, and we know this, in industrial environments, too little data is shared because companies are not sure if they really should share data because they don't know what happens to the data. They are stepping back and saying, well, we are not sure, we don't know how to do it. And that is exactly what IDSA has been doing since years. to overcome this gap, to find the balance between the clear willingness to and the clear understanding that we need to share data to create more value than before, and on the other hand side, the hesitance to say, oh, I don't know what happens to my data because it's my data. Well, we know that this is also not true, but anyway, they're not willing to share and insert data to DataSpace. And well, this picture depicts perfectly what it is. So at the end, it's the moment where you plug in your USB device in the computer. So should you do it or not? And that is exactly the question which we have to answer and the thing which we have to overcome. So a participant in a data space has to be able to take an informed decision about with who do I share data and via which components. And then you can, without regret, plug in your device and share data, laying back and saying everything is fine. Well, and that is what IDSA brings to data spaces. We call it the magic triangle. And with IDSA, we want to provide this reliable base for data spaces. With that, we provide the trust which is needed. So you can see it on the picture at the left part. Trust is at the center, right? So in the blue box at the very top right, to build a data space, it's a peer-to-peer, federated, distributed network thinking. So we will, IDSA, we will guarantee interoperability in data spaces, but also between different data spaces. So you can share your data here, and you can share your data in another data space. So all this cross-sectoral approach. We also explain and define the holistic governance, how to run data spaces. So this is a complicated thing with data spaces, and there are a lot of roles and a lot of duties to take. There's a separation of duties, so who does what? So that is where we make a proposal how to do it, how to govern data spaces. And then, well, obviously we need some software components, some protocols, a lot of specifications. So that is what we describe, co-create with our members and in interaction with other organizations and initiatives out there. We need to agree on this standard, right? So this is what it's all about. IDSA is a standard defining organization. And we must do it in a way that companies can later use the standard and all the assets and achievements in commercial offerings. So therefore, we provide a clear life cycle, change management processes, versioning of our standard. And at the end, we ensure trust. So the magic triangle is what you can see depicted here. And it is the triangle of the IDS reference architecture, the certification scheme, and the portfolio of open source building blocks. All being, well, tied together by the IDSA rulebook. The reference architecture is the blueprint for data spaces with these detailed specifications for all the roles and components which we need. The certification scheme can deliver, with the help of third-party evaluators, the conformity to the reference architecture, which allows for the just mentioned informed decision about the trustworthiness of partners and components in the data space. So you can show to someone else, okay, I'm using a proper component and I know how to deal with the data because my organization is adhering to this and understands how to do it. Okay, I can, you can count on me, right? So this is trust. And then the third part of the triangle is the portfolio of open source building blocks. So we need to make this standard happen. So implementation, adoption is key. So we have to bring ideas in commercial setups, and that is what happens in our open source endeavor. And this triangle, this is what IDSA is driving and governing. So defining everything in the architecture, proving conformity via certification scheme, and bringing things to life with you, with our members, but also with non-members. That is why we have open source in our open source project. And the rulebook, again, is the glue behind all of this. That is what we want to show you today. So really have a deep dive on this magic triangle, how we can really bring trust to data sharing ecosystems and provide this informed decision for a participant in a data space. Shall I plug in my USB device in your computer or not? That's what we are doing. And we have a clear path of activities, of processes, of bodies in our association, which, well, develop all the bits and pieces to make that happen. And this is lined up in a clear path to bring IDS to commercial setup, from the open standard, the third-party conformity, the, well, glue how to run data spaces, the open source, up to really making IDS de facto standard with a clear adoption strategy. That is what we are doing. Today's event is thought to be really a deep dive in what IDSA is doing. So I would like to paint the big picture. So how do we make sure that we define on the one hand side in a consensual manner with all our members, we define the standard, and how do we bring this core to life, to adoption, to ecosystems. So that is our way of thinking. So in the center, the well, dark blue circle is the IDS core. So the creation of the standard, and we have a lot of activities what we are doing there, again, in a consensual manner. So we are at the end a very boring standard developing organization. So we sit together with members and develop our architectures, our specifications, our publications, our processes, whatever, and we agree if we do it like that or not. And that is what we need in data spaces, right? A thorough foundation which is agreed by all players on the market. So like the USB device, right? So we said, okay, we understand. So the computer manufacturer builds in the plug, the socket, sorry, and the USB device manufacturer knows how to build the device, and at the end it fits, and that is what we're doing in IDSA. So for the core, we're working on the reference architecture, on the rulebook, on the certification scheme, a definition of a minimal viable data space. So what is really the smallest common denominator to build a data space? This is done in our open source endeavor, which is called IDSG. We have a clear open source graduation scheme, how to bring projects through the life cycle of an open source project, and we have a test bed to really well, check if the device fits the socket, right? So these are the dark blue boxes, and this is not enough. We really do a lot on adoption, so really setting up and providing, we as IDSA, with the money from the membership fees, for example, we set up a lot of tools and services to bring IDS to the market, and we will learn a lot more on that today. And finally, we do not do it in a closed room, only us talking with our friends. No, we talk with everyone out there. So we have an intense interaction with stakeholders, with the ecosystem around IDS, and well, we cannot not talk about the Data Space Business Alliance, so with BDVA, Fireware, and Gaia X, but also with others like My Data Global, A New Governance, the Data Sovereignty Now movement, the Data Sharing Coalition, all our hub facilitator all over Europe and even globally, the liaisons with important initiatives like Industrial Internet Consortium, Robot Revolution initiatives, Data Society Alliance, OPC Foundation, and so on. So we really continuously check how the world acts. And well, this is all based on our members and IDS association with the General Assembly, the Board of Directors, and the head office to give support. And well, how does all of this fit together? You can see it displayed here, and that is what you will witness in the next hour. So the interaction between the blue circle in the middle and then the next, so to say, onion ring of adoption. So how does that stick together? And this is like a process which you can see. So let's start at the bottom left. So the reference architecture is the centerpiece or the Bible of IDSA, so to say. There's the clear roadmap how to work from version 3 to version 4 and then version 5, and a backlog what to do, which changes to accept. Out of this, we derive the certification criteria, which is the foundation for the certification. And on base of this, we have the test bed to prove really interoperability. And this is what can be used in our open source endeavor to build your projects. And that is what we do. So we do not produce software. IDSA does not produce software. We define the standard. We provide a minimal viable setup of a data space. We provide this open source together with our members. And then this can be taken and commercial products can be built on top of this. And with this process, with this magic triangle, we always make sure the input via the open source, with the test bed, the interoperability testing, the certification, all relying on the reference architecture. With that, we make sure that all connectors, all IDS relevant components stay interoperable, and therefore we can really pay on the big goal of DataSpaces to provide interoperability among all the participants and adding trust for data sharing scenarios. So this is how we ensure this, what we are doing in IDSA. Well, I should mention the IDSA rulebook. So this is, well, again, describing the glue between all of this, and the IDSA support organization takes care of the formal processes which are needed to issue the certificates. And then we do a lot in the left part, so proliferation of the standard, to really interact with projects in different domains, in different contexts, with all of the companies all over the world, to really bring this value of trust and interoperability in commercial products, so that at the end, the users, the participants in the data space can benefit from it. And that is the big value which we produce in IDSA. So there's so much to do, and there's really so much to shape, because we are really on the threshold in a new paradigm of data sharing with DataSpaces, and we see DataSpaces flourishing. So we have the first examples today, and there's in all the big endeavors, Catena X with the Eclipse Dataspace Connector. This is completely relying on IDS, the mobility data space, relying on IDS, Smart Connected Supply Network, relying on IDS, based on IDS. So that's great. We already have made impact, but we have to do a lot more. So become part of our journey. That's the invitation of today. Have your say. So you as a company, as a user, or as a supplier of services or software, have your say, be part of this standard definition. That is what we're doing in IDS, right? So we define the standard. Choose your line of action, so you have different opportunities to work here or there. So please become part of that and co-create data economy. And with that, I'm more than happy to hand over to my dear colleagues, which will now do a deep dive in all the issues which I've just shown, let you know about all the assets and achievements which we have made. And again, this is all about co-creation. whatever triggers your interest, give us a note, and then become part of it. That's what it's about in creation of a standard. So the next one will be Sebastian Steinbuss, so CTO of IDSA, and he will give the deep dive on the fundaments of IDS, the RAM, and the rulebook. Sebastian, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Lars. And thank you for the great introduction. Thank you for having me here today, and totally glad to present you some insights and to continue on just what Lars presented before. One question before. I hope you can hear me, you can see me, and you can see my slides. Having said this, I will start with the fundaments of IDS, the reference architecture model and the rulebook, and our way forward to both of those topics. We are working on IDS reference architecture model 4. We are working on it, and we will publish it in the next year. We didn't have a new reference architecture model in the last year for several reasons, but this doesn't mean that we haven't been working on things. I mean, reference architecture model 3 was a great foundation, and a lot of projects started working based on reference architecture model 3. We got so much feedback and so much requests to detail more and to work on the details, and we did. And based on all the things that we received as feedback, the change requests, and of course other important initiatives, we detailed our work, and now we have to consolidate again. That means for the new reference architecture model, we have to continuously align with the existing detailed specifications that we have today. For example, for the metadata broker, for the clearinghouse, and also the work that we are doing and have done for the connector. We have the IDS rulebook, which is not part of the reference architecture model, but we have to clearly explain the link between the both documents. We did from the perspective of the rulebook. The technical specification is based on the reference architecture model inside the rulebook, but in the other direction. So this is where we need a clear alignment between the both things, the operationalization and the life cycle of IDS and IDS-based ecosystems, and the whole governance scheme that we have in the rulebook. We have to clearly create this link. And of course, we're discussing so much interesting new topics. Verifiable credentials, for example, DIDs. These are concepts that we might consider also for our reference architecture model. Companies, people's use cases are asking for that. New protocols for data exchange and digging into the details. One important question that drives the great initiatives currently is, so how can we federate different data spaces? How can I join as a participant, for example, inside Catena X, the mobility data space, or vice versa, or the smart connected suppliers network in the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. These are the things that we do currently discuss and where we have already great insights, a great step forward. Now we have to really create the reference architecture model. And we are only able to do this when all of you continuously contribute inside our working groups and continue to collaborate for the new reference architecture model. That means our plan is we want to publish a new version of the reference architecture model in April of 2022. So somehow we need a content freeze until February 2022, and then we have to head for really continuous updates. I do not assume that everything will be fixed and new until April 2022, but we have a good foundation then again to continuously innovate and continue the development of the reference architecture model. We will do a major shift with regards to tooling. We are doing a lot of work currently on GitHub, and we will continuously work on the reference architecture model based on GitHub using Markdown files. So at least this is the current state of discussion, that we are switching to Markdown. Currently we're working in LaTeX files. And the main point here is we're going for an online version first. To really continuously create updates on the reference architecture model. We will focus on an online version, but of course, if you would like to have a printout, you can also receive a printout, but maybe a little bit later than April 2022. So clear focus online first and a real good, reliable and fast lifecycle model on this. And of course, a clear call to action to all of you, be part of this. I mean, we have to revise basically everything in the reference architecture model and adopt it to the current status of work, starting from the introduction, the context of IDS setting the scene, and all the different layers and perspectives that we have. I already explained we have to align it a little bit with the rulebook. We have to update, especially on the system layer, to explain how the different components evolve and how they collaborate with each other. We have to update the security perspective from my point of view, because it consists of the core statements in IDS, using X509 certificates for identities and building then on the dApps to verify the trustworthiness of a component inside. And so let's review it, how we can update this, for example, to the Gaia X approach with verifiable credentials or DID. This is what we do have to seriously discuss with all of you and come up with a good proposal for that. So this is a general outline for reference architecture model 4. Be invited to be part of this, to contribute to this discussion. It is easy as it is. Join our working groups, join our GitHub repositories. If you have a question or you want to have a change, just commit the change request or contribute to the text as a whole. So this is my clear call to action. How we continue with the reference architecture model. But the reference architecture model, as Lars outlined, is only one aspect of this magic triangle. We'll come back later to the certification and also to open source. But another important aspect is the IDSA rulebook. The IDSA rulebook is currently here in the first version, but we have to continuously also work on this. And my dear colleague Giulia will get you on board to explain the details how to continue the rulebook. I will skip the slides for you, Giulia.
Perfect. Thank you, Sebastian. Hello, everyone. So I will give you an insight on what's our plan with the rulebook, but let me first bring everyone to the same page. So what is the rulebook? The rulebook is a document containing all the important rules and agreement to make IDS fully operational in a real-world scenario. And the reason behind it was already anticipated by Lars at the beginning, is that we have plenty of assets. So the whole association is working on the IDS RAM certification and other assets and processes, but we really needed something to bring all these assets and processes together. And this is exactly what the rulebook is for. So the rulebook is the document containing all technical, operational, and legal agreements to really make IDS work in a real-world scenario. So you will find there rules on how to set up a data space, how to operate it, and how to govern it. Let me give you a quick insight on what you will find there in concrete. There are 5 main sections in the rulebook, and the first one sets the basis for all the others. You will find there a clarification of all the roles and duties and responsibilities. You will also find there the definition of the essential and base services. The second section is the technical one. So you will find there all the definitions of the technical specifications and documents, and they will be exactly linked here in their most recent version. The third and fourth sections are the operational ones. The first one is related to the administrative parts. So you will find here kind of a handbook for the support organization. For those of you that are not that familiar with this term, the support organization is a third party which makes sure that trust is there in a data space, and that also oversees all the essential components. One example of what you will find here is rules for the admission or withdrawal of team members. The fourth section, the other operational one, is related to maintenance. And you will find here everything related to versioning, change management, request management. Moving to the last one, that's related to the legal side of data exchange. So in this section, you will find guidelines and best practices endorsed by IDSA on how to ensure compliant collaboration. This section serves the purpose to support you in creating kind of a contractual framework within your data space. So very important. We are continuously working on it also thanks to the IDSA legal community that continuously provides inputs for this section. This was a very brief overview. As Sebastian mentioned, we are now in our first version of the rulebook, but we are continuously working in a new version to include most recent decisions and new specifications. But as you can imagine, this is not something for this point in time, because the rulebook will obviously evolve together with the evolution of the IDS offering. And this is why we have decided to come up with a new working group for it, which will be the working group rulebook. So the main responsibility of this working group will be to maintain the rulebook as an asset. And this will be done following the principles and the process developed into the IDSA handbook. This is just a document that forms the basis for all the operations and clearly says how the association works. And yeah, this is the main responsibility. Another one will also be to act as gateway towards the outside world, and especially to maintain contact and to align continuously with all the other European endeavors that are dealing with rulebooks. For example, the design principles for DataSpaces. All IDSA members can participate into the working group rulebook and are invited to do so to really support this important activity of the association. If you have any question, feel free to contact me directly. In general, you will find updates later on Drive. And now back to you, Sebastian, for a few closing words.
Thank you so much, Giulia. Yes, this is a clear call to action. We will start a new working group for the rulebook very, very soon. We will inform every one of you to be part of this amazing working group. If you want to jump in immediately and start working with us, contact Giulia or me directly. We will onboard you as fast as possible. Same applies for reference architecture model 4. Be invited, and if you have any questions or comments, always reach out to me. So having said this, thank you so much for the session on reference architecture model and rulebook. And I think we can move directly to the next point in the agenda, as we have already a slight delay, which is on the open source components. And therefore, I would kindly invite my dear colleague Anil on the stage. Hi, Anil, good to see you.
Hi, Sebastian. Hi, all, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And
so can you share the slides?
Sure.
Yes, perfect. So let me briefly introduce. So this is an important thing, really. IDS is working on open source components. Sneak preview, we are not building open source. You are building open source, and we do support you while building open source. My dear colleague Anil will explain you how we do this and what is the main scope. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Sebastian, for the great introduction. And hello again. So as it was mentioned in the first session by Lars, our role in the open source as the head office is more about setting the standards and rules and processes to enhance the development and foster the collaboration among people who experiment with data spaces. So, and we want to provide a transparent and agile environment for that as much as possible. And so there was a great amount of work being done this year, and you can see the results on GitHub and on our open source landscape. And we actually see this as a very important place to be in, the open source landscape. So from a project's point of view, what are the benefits for a project to be here? Well, we can say you can be able to attract more people, more traction and more visibility within the IDSA network, and also you can gather more feedback on your project, which is going to contribute to the quality of your project. And also we want to enable people to learn from each other's experiences in a transparent and collaborative way, and this is the place to be. And also you can also attract more people who can contribute to your project and in a voluntary way or in any other way. So that's a great place to discuss and to share and to foster the collaboration between the teams. Maybe an important announcement before this achievements. I should say that contrary to the popular belief, neither GitHub nor the IDS open source landscape is a place for only for techies. So non-techies are also very welcome, and their involvement in the development process is quite important to have better quality and more usable products in the end. And when everyone is included, everyone wins. So please, you are warmly invited to join us, whether you are from a technical background or from a business background or any other background. So what we achieved this year would be categorized in 4 steps. So maybe we can just start with, we started by clarifying the open source strategy for IDSA. And so we defined our role and position and our contributions to the projects. And then we formed a task force for the open source endeavor, and that we highly used for decision making, and we got really great contributions from our members in the task force. And so we built, and we are still maintaining a graduation scheme for the projects to apply and get their place in the open source landscape. And so we already started to get applications for it, which is great. And also setting up the 2 very important repositories that are managed by the head office, which are IDS GPRI and IDS Think Tank. So far, so we have quite good amount of action in our landscape. So we have 39 repositories in total, where 29 of them are public, and so it means that 10 of them are private, but these are work in progress, and they are going to be public soon. And we have more than 140 people who are working and contributing here. And so the action and the collaboration is growing every day, so which is great to see. And maybe for the life cycle process, I can give it back to you, Sebastian.
Sure, thank you so much, Anil. So maybe one thing to clarify, to understand this graph view as well, private means for IDSA members, because even while we do open source, our members do open source, IDSA has somehow to stay in the driver's seat. So what do we do as IDSA? The IDSA publicates and approves and releases the reference architecture model, including the subsequent specifications that we provide via IDSG, and I will come back to this in just in a minute. And this defines our certification and the testbed, so to act as a compliance proof. So we can show now if someone or something is compliant to IDS or not, based on the specifications, on the standards that we built together as an association with all of you as members. And if you show that you're compliant, then you will be part of this portfolio of building blocks as an open source component based on the graduation scheme or as a certified component. And of course, everyone who builds things is always asked to request changes. And even if you are not an IDSA member, you can request changes. But IDSA and you as the members, you are in the driver's seat to approve and to release a reference architecture model. This is our job and our duty to keep control over all those things that we can clearly state. This is IDS and this is not IDS. And on the next slide, so what is what you can do practically? Join into our portfolio of building blocks. Can you switch the slide, Anil? Yes. Join our graduation scheme. If you have an issue, if you want to change something, if you have a change request, just go join us on GitHub on IDSG, raise an issue, and we will discuss this inside IDSA. And as a member of IDSA, you can shape exactly those issues. As a non-member, you can always bring in your ideas, bring in your proposals, but you're not in the position to decide. So to make this very, very clear, this is a basic idea of this whole scheme that we have.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian, for explaining this life cycle. And yeah, as mentioned, it's really important. It's playing an important role in our association's mission as well. And well, so I would like to provide some more inputs on the graduation scheme. So this was recently published and is publicly available on our GitHub landscape. It was the result of a work that was done with our open source task force, which is consisting of 30 representatives from 17 organizations, where most of them are IDSA members. And so this is basically about having a 3-level approach. So we we want to lower the barrier for the new projects who want to be part of our open source landscape. So as a sandbox project, all you need to do is to comply with the IDSA IP policy and have a short description of alignment and have a clear roadmap and adopt the code of conduct and have the contribution guidelines available. So you can apply to this via our association's websites. It's under Make and Open Source, and you will find forms to apply. And so the main approach for the graduation scheme is to lower the barrier for the entries and then have a higher barrier for the incubation and graduation level, which are respectively the second and third levels. And what you can expect in the short term. So it will be mentioned in more detail in the next session by my colleague Sonia Jimenez. So the reference testbed is on its way. And there is also this deployment scenarios, which is a project that we are working on at the moment. So we want to build and establish a knowledge base of the available deployment scenarios that are available in the market. And also as IDSA, we want to offer our minimum viable data space, so our definition of it and what you need to establish a minimum viable data space. So we want all the visitors to be able to find the recipe for the minimum viable data space and then find building blocks and then bringing them together and start experimenting with the data space. So we want to facilitate this process as much as possible. And we also want to list different scenarios that are formed with the other elements of portfolio of building blocks, and so data space examples and data space deployment scenarios. And we also want to enable this portfolio of building blocks and make it as accessible as possible to everyone who want to experiment with data spaces, basically. So you can expect a catalog and a lot of deployment scenarios that will come within, and to make your journey as easy as possible. So back to you, Sebastian, and thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you, Anil, so much. So maybe one important thing. Two important things. Of course, IDSG, for everyone who is not aware of, we are working also as a GitHub repository on IDSG, which is a place which really extends the reference architecture model with more details, with more specification, and of course, it's publicly available. Everyone can use IDS, being an IDSA member or not. But we are working on the content on another repository, a private repository named IDSG Pre, where we prepare everything and where we bring in the new concepts and new content to the working groups, to the technical steering committee, and approve it, and then publish it on a regular basis. Every quarter you'll receive an update on IDSG. So it's open to use for everyone. It's transparent to use for everyone. And of course, an open thing that should be used everywhere where data sharing while using data sovereignty is required and applied. So this is why we do all the different things. And one thing that both of us forget, Anil, is so the graduation scheme is not only there and defined, it is in practice. And we've got the first application, surprisingly, by the Eclipse DataSpace connector. And I would expect that now a lot of others will come in as the next steps. So we are not, it's not we will start this community, we build this community. We have a community that is working there as open source, as open documents to support IDS and the adoption of IDS everywhere. And this is really a great achievement. And all of you, you are warmly invited to join our work here and to contribute, and of course, to use it everywhere where it's applicable. So thanks to all of you for listening to the open sourcing, and Anil already made the sneak preview to the next topic about certification and the testbed. Thank you so much, Anil, for joining, for presenting. And now with me on stage, my dear colleague, Sonia Jimenez. Soon on stage with me, my dear colleague, Sonia.
Now, can you see me now? Okay. Okay. Yes, hello, Sebastian. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Sonia. Good to have you here with us. Thank you for sharing the slides. So certification. What about certification? So we as IDS, we as IDSA, we are here to deliver the certification. And it's not only about putting a label on something and say, so this is something vegan, gluten-free, whatever, but it's really IDS compliant. And that has a certain value inside, being IDS certified and being a trustworthy component. That's the whole idea of IDS certification. And we made a real long way to get here. And maybe if you can switch to the second slide. So about the certification, we made a long way starting from the reference architecture, building the certification criteria, building then the test specification, building the test designs, building a test bed where we can really verify and prove the compliance, the interoperability compliance and the compliance to the IDS rules. This is what we've done during the last years. This was a long way of work, and today we're really here to deliver that. The idea of IDS is still that the participants in the data space collaborate by sharing the valuable data, as Lars already presented. But this can only put into practice on the basis of trust. And the IDS certification will provide a certain level of trust into those data spaces, into those ecosystems, by certification, by independent evaluators, and by putting in practice a certification body that witnesses and puts all the rules that we define as IDSA into practice. This is a real brief, rough outline. And I think all of you know what we plan to do. And now we can show you what we did do. And with that, over to you, Sonia.
Thank you, Sebastian. So let me switch to the next slide. Yes, so thank you for this introduction. So yes, it's been mentioned already several times during the today's presentation. We need certification, and we need certification to build this trust within these unknown communication partners. And what are we certifying? So there are two things, there are two ways to bring trust to the ecosystem. So we certify IDS components, and we certify the operational environment where these components run. And how do we do this? So we've built different assets in order to bring certification to life. So first one, a very important one, the reference testbed that I will explain in a minute in a bit more detail. The questionnaire, so we need this questionnaire for this first assurance level for the checklist approach, where the applicant of the certification would verify that the component that he developed behaves according to the IDS specifications. The automated test suite, so this is another tool, another software that we need to perform some automated testing for interoperability. And then we have defined also the test specifications. So these are common specifications that will apply, or that all evaluation facilities will apply. And this is to ensure that the certification is exactly the same in every evaluation facility. And who's involved in this process? So we need, on one hand, the certification body. We need these evaluation facilities to conduct the evaluation of the certification. And then we need, of course, the applicants. So we bring this transparency to the data spaces to ensure trust on two different levels. We have defined certification for core components and for operational environments. In both cases, there are different assurance levels depending on the security level required for the different scenarios. And regarding the core component certification, one of the main differences between these assurance levels is that we have defined a checklist approach as an entry-level certification for the first assurance level, where no evaluation facility is required. It's only performed by the applicant directly with the certification body. For the second assurance level, then an evaluation facility as third party would be required, would be the one conducting the certification. And as I said, also we need to certify the operational environment where these components are installed. So this is why we're offering two types of certification. Regarding the asset, so main asset is a reference testbed. The reference testbed is on GitHub. It's a setup of IDS components. It's all open source. Right now, the repository is still private because we have to finalize it. But of course, you can all get access to it, and you can, of course, review it and start contributing. So, as I said, the reference testbed is a setup that helps us test the behavior of the specific component and also test if the component can work interoperable with other IDS components. It is for component behavior testing, interoperability testing. It's the preparation for the IDS certification. So we really encourage anyone who wants to get a component certified to start by testing this component on this testbed. And it's also the starting point for the creation of DataSpaces. So here this testbed can evolve from the current version to really include more IDS components, even non-IDS components, to even connect it to other platforms. So really to use this setup as the starting point to create something beyond that, much bigger. In the repository, you can find the installation guide that explains how to install the components, and we also provide some pre-configured setup so that it is as easy as possible or as quick as possible to install the complete setup. And we provide a user guide also, because if you bring your own developed connector, you can also test it against the components on this testbed setup. One slide back. So this is the first version of the reference testbed that we will deliver. It consists of 2 connectors, a broker, adapts, and a certificate authority. And as I explained, we explain in this installation guide how to install the components, how to connect them to each other, and also how to bring another connector into this setup. And we have defined the use cases, so really what can be done with this external connector in this testbed setup. And with this, back to you, Sebastian.
Yes, thank you so much, Sonia, for guiding us through the current status of certification. So I will just do the after work a little bit. So defining some things and explaining what we do have already. We have a certification body in place. So this is defined in the certification scheme, the one that supervises all the work and makes sure that everything works properly. This is set up and in place and ready to take on the work. There's a checklist approach for the connectors, nearly ready to get it started. Then the certification body will be the right contact for you. We are starting to approve the first evaluation facilities, so independent third parties that will evaluate your operational environment or your component according to the rules that we all have set up. And they will be in place and in charge to conduct the evaluations. And then we are looking for you. You as the applicant, if you have a cool connector, a cool component that you want to get certified, always reach out to us and ask us and get in contact with us. We will bring you on your way through this certification process. Or you who wants to set up an ecosystem, being a DataSpace participant to certify your operational environment. And if you want to know more, on our last slide for this session, the relevant links to all the important documents. Of course, on the IDSA homepage, we are building more and more information about the process, about the structure, about the content to inform every one of you. We have all the testbed components and the testing suites as open source in the testbed repositories. Currently private repository will be completely public when we have the first version. And then, of course, everything that you know, the position paper, the certification criteria, and so on and so forth. And then as we create a little delay with our pitch of the important topics, I will give the words to the next man on stage, to you, Christoph. Sorry for being late, and thank you, Sonia, for the presentation. Thanks to all of you for listening. Floor is yours, guys.
Thanks, Sebastian, and don't worry about the delay. I think we will catch up sometime. I mean, if we now recapitalize what we had a look, it's the core of the circle drawing, the onion model that Lars showed at the very beginning. And yeah, as with fruits, for instance, the core is very dense, and therefore it's also nice to spend some time here. With the following two presentations. What we want to do is to give you some insights into the adoption activities. So the members of you, or the members amongst you, might already be familiar with some of the topics, but you also know going towards live with IDS-based data spaces on many ends can be a challenge. So you have to do many things in order to reach that point. And I think it's time to introduce to you a 5-step process that is supposed to make it easier to keep the overview. So where am I in the process of adapting the IDS standard? To whom can I reach out in order to get support with my activities? What is going on out there in the data space world? And Markos here from the adoption team now will give you some more insights into this 5-step process. If you bring your slides to the presentation mode, I think we're good to go. Yeah, perfect.
This is fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Christoph. And as you said, I'm going to present the 5 steps to build a data space. 5 steps is nothing very new. Am I back in non-presentation mode? I'm sorry. Okay. So what I mean with not new is that we knew already what are these 5 steps to come from gathering knowledge to successfully running a data space, becoming part of it. What we have changed this year is due to the fact that we have so many projects running and so many activities on our side. We wanted to create a single source of truth, a place where you can go through these 5 steps, and for each of the steps find the information that is necessary to understand what is your role, how you can leverage the different components and projects that are being implemented, or how you could contribute if you are supplying solutions or if you are an implementation partner that can support data spaces evolve. So we created something that is on GitHub right now, and for every of these steps that you see right now on your screen, from gathering your knowledge and understanding your role, to creating your data sharing use case, understanding what components you will need, into the step that you can build or buy the necessary components from technology providers, or the great open source activities that we saw before that help you create something from scratch, to all the certification activities that we saw just before. We have created this place where you can find information, and this is something that, with your help and the help of our experts, will grow, because we know that the journey of every project is unique, and even though it is unique, and some projects starts from other stages due to their knowledge and due to their needs, we wanted to create this 5-step approach in an abstract level, so that everybody can find their own journey into that even before contacting us to become more knowledgeable. And at the end, this contributes, of course, to the bigger goal, which is the adoption and the making of data spaces. But as explained very often, this is sometimes always maybe a complex topic, and we have a lot of knowledge, and we add more and more. So this is why we have launched the Adoption Accelerator this year. That is our efforts to support, together with a community of experts, the acceleration of the journey for our projects. And here is where Christoph will explain a bit more about how we do this.
Yeah, thanks, Markos. So this 5-step process, you can find a link in the chat. Sorry for the issue that the slides are not visible until the bottom. Have a look into the chat there, you will find the missing links. Adoption-wise, Markos, could you go back to the presentation mode, please? Yeah, thank you. So adoption-wise, what we now had to look at with the 5-step approach to make it easier for you to stay ahead of things. This is something that we understand in context of the knowledge base. So these 5 steps are a good guide for you to find your way to the right document, to the right partners that are there. And the knowledge base is something that, thanks to the support of many people out there, a lot of them are amongst the people here in the call also, this is a steadily growing thing. So a lot of documentation, how to make use of stuff is out there, and we are just here to create transparency, which is also happening in context of the existing DataSpace endeavors and use cases. So for those of you browsing our website frequently, the DataSpace radar is the thing, the tool to create transparency over existing projects out there on all levels of maturity, starting from a first rough idea about, okay, let's create a data space for a certain domain or a certain area, all the way up to those front-running projects that are already very close to get to the market, like Mobility Data Space or also Catena X or SCSM. This is only happening, regardless the level, this is only happening due to a great community. And I think it's not enough to stop with a knowledge base, with a 5-step approach that you can find somewhere on a web page. Making data spaces happen really is a community effort. I've never seen a data space succeeding and being able to transfer data where only one partner was involved. It's really something where you rely on a great community, a great consortium of companies where everyone shares responsibilities and is doing the right thing to get to a success. So the community aspect on the things that we do is very important for us. Implementation partners are one part of the community that is, besides us as adoption team of the IDSA head office, capable to guide you on many different levels. So starting your journey and defining a business model or the use case in general, all the way up to implementing components. This is something that implementation partners can support with the help of many others that are in our communities that are also constructed in a domain-specific way. So the community, IDSA communities that you for sure know about healthcare, industry, and mobility, to name the 3 most prominent examples here, are great examples of vivid communities where people come together, exchange thoughts, and get things going. And this leads at the end to also together with alliances, so teaming up with Gaia X, with BDVA, with Fireware, with associations from Japan, the DSA Data Sharing Alliance, with many more on this list where we create alliances to let the community grow. This leads to the trailblazing projects, and I already named them: Mobility Data Space, Catena, SCSN are only 3 examples of many more projects out there that are worth to have a look at. And yeah, the support that we as head office again give to you is a one-on-one support, at least for the members amongst you, to support you on your way on the 5 steps. And without further ado, so I think Lars also is with us for the next slot that talks a bit more in detail about the radar and the things happening. So Lars, if you would like to step on stage again with us to discuss about the next topic. There you are, which is about what is going on out there, what are the front-running things that we should have a look at and we should be aware of.
Thank you, Christoph. I think that I would start here.
Markos, please take over.
Yeah. So great. Yeah, I will present a bit exactly that as we finish this great session. The data space radar, and Lars will continue with how this is linked to DataSpace Business Alliance. So this year we had this great success with the radar. So we were thinking of ideas how to create this transparency on the success stories that we had so far, and let everybody get inspirations while everyone out there can also track progress in different domains, understand where use cases are becoming right now more mature, where we have more let's say interest from the market, more research activities and so on. And the idea for the radar it was created, it was presenting for the first time during the summit, and from that time onwards, I must say that we have had many requests for presenting this, and we have had many registrations on our website for becoming part of the radar. And it's a great activity because it exactly allows everything to be tracked, and it has, as it's mentioned here, a forward-looking character. So every time that we have new items or we have highlights, success stories, we try to promote them. And next to the DataSpace radar, we have activities like a post that some of you might already follow, which is called DataSpace Tuesday, where every Tuesday we present a highlight on different endeavors that are in there. Either there are activities and projects in DataSpaces that are in very near to become live, or pilots that are very interesting or very promising, even consortiums that are entering right now the world of DataSpaces. So it's a great time of the year, because now with the DSBA that you have heard during the session maybe a lot, it's time for the radar to scale. And I want us to give a sneak preview. First of all, I'm sure I didn't show this before, the current overview, and if this seems to be already a lot with those many logos, and I must say I'm really sorry if some of you cannot see the details of it. I just wanted to show that this is just the beginning of what will come with the evolution of the radar through the DataSpace Business Alliance, because as mentioned before, this is an alliance that will use the huge network, partner network of all four initiatives being here connected. So we have structured already a kind of process to, first of all, identify lighthouses, see where there are promising endeavors that are ready to go to stages towards live, and help them through our community of implementation partners, of experts, right? So the matchmaking process can already start when we have identified, on the one hand, who is in need of help to move forward. So at the end, this pays, of course, to the goal of making DataSpace happen. So this is our plan for making this bigger, and with the handout we'll also share with you the registration form that has already been created for becoming part of this bigger radar effort. So I will give the floor back to you, Lars, to close this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christoph and Markos, and the great work from the A team. So we really have to foster adoption after setting up the reliable baseline, the magic triangle. It's you to bring the standard to life. So thank you very much. And can someone make me moderator so that I can share my slides? Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, so you could. Perfect. Yeah, so we have learned a lot about IDSA and our contribution to the success of DataSpaces, but I think you have hopefully received a great overview of what we are doing and what contribution we can deliver. But DataSpaces are a big beast, and there's a lot more to do on DataSpaces. So IDSA, we are taking care about the data exchange layer. So at the end, a certain focus on the semantic layer, the cybersecurity features. That is what we focus on. But in order to build a data space, you need much more. So you need, for example, what to do with the data. So how to extract the value out of data. So in this whole co-creation process in data sharing. So that is where big data value association is great for. Then, you have to make it happen, to implement it in concrete environments. So that is where Fireware Foundation, with a strong open source focus, has a huge network all over the world. And if we're talking about data spaces, there are already hundreds of data spaces running. So mainly in the smart city realm, based on Fireware. So that is something which we should have in mind. And then, we may not stop here without mentioning Gaia-X, right? So we all need Gaia-X because it's nice to share data, but where's the data stored? Where's the data processed? Where can I find the services to do great things with data? Well, we need a soft infrastructure and catalogs and services for that. And that is what Gaia-X brings to the table, right? So therefore, we have decided that we need to team up with the 4 initiatives. So if we have a look at the data world, so this is the stack of architectures which we know of, and in the field of data spaces and industrial data and AI, we have been working closely together already since years, and all of us have been from the very first day with Gaia-X. So Gaia-X was the missing link for Europe's and global data spaces. So great that we have it in place right now and that Gaia-X is speeding up. And here you can see a overview why we have to come up with a common framework for this middle part of data sharing, data spaces, so that we link the hardware infrastructure, the devices, with the smart service scenarios which we all want to see, because we as citizens, companies, they're not interested in all the things below. Well, we assume that it is there, right? Like a soft infrastructure, like for mobile communication, we have GSM. Nobody knows how GSM really works, right? So we expect, if I take my mobile phone and travel from Germany to Denmark, then I can call someone, and if I call from Denmark to Spain, well, it just works. I don't care. And that's the same what we need for data sharing, right? So like SWIFT in banking or GSM in mobile communication. And I think we can build a big chunk, so we will not forget the other initiatives which are there, like My Data Global with a focus on personal data, or new governance, also iShare, which add a lot on the trust schemes. So they are all part of our organizations. And if we talk about DSBA, it's really the most inclusive idea, because we really have more than 1,000 leading players in the realm of data with us. And so essentially every company, be it the demand side, the supply side, and also the relevant organizations, are member of at least one of the 4 organizations. And in September, we finally announced that we've been teaming up. We have, during summer, done a lot of alignment and shaped our collaboration. And we have, since September, really have had close workshops to come up with one important thing. We need one voice on DataSpaces. So you may not be distracted by, should I use this component or that framework from Gaia, from IDS, from BDBA, or Fiber, or something else. No, we need one common framework so that you get a clear guideline, clear ideas, reusable assets to build your data space. So you can make your choice. You can decide what to use, how to assemble, but we can provide jointly a framework how to do it. And for most, we agreed and that we teamed up to speak with one voice. So there's no way to the necessity to make your choice between one of the organizations. No, we are speaking with one voice, and we are working on one framework. So DSBA, we did not start with a new organizational setup. We just do the right things together, combine our expertise, our work streams, and our energy. And the idea is to make DataSpaces happen, to really leave impact. And therefore, we came up with a 100-day plan. So you can see it depicted at the left-hand side, where we assemble and reuse all the work streams, communities, bodies which we do have in our organizations to work together on one common action plan to make DataSpaces happen, to speed them up, and to deploy results. This is the work plan structure. So from a baseline, the foundation, the common framework, via transparency. So what is going on? Where are the data spaces? We are talking so much about data spaces, which are triggered from the European Commission in the programs of Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, but also on national level in all the European countries with large funding programs. So we have to show what is going on. Data spaces are not new. They are there, and the next thing is to leave impact, to enlarge maturity in the data spaces, and to really deploy results. And therefore, we need this rollout plan and clear support for making data spaces on success. And that is what we agreed upon in DataSpaces Business Alliance, that we team up there. And the objectives for the next 100 days is we will provide the first common framework and some technology integration quick wins. We will send out a survey, so like a Facebook for data spaces, so that we know what is going on, where are the really cool data space endeavors, who can become part of it. So also the matchmaking aspect is there. On the other hand side, we want to scout those lighthouse projects which are really mature to be like a blueprint or inspiration. And we will harmonize our hubs so that we can, on European level at least, but better globally, really leave more impact than before. That is what we will do until the end of January, and then you can witness a lot what is going on in DataSpace Business Alliance. Well, perhaps we can have the moment for one or two questions. Time is running, it's unfortunate. So I'm happy that you were with us. Let me see if there are questions in the questions to take. Maybe someone may help me. You can also raise your hand. Then I'm happy to answer your questions. Well, while giving you the opportunity, well, there's so much to do. I show this slide once again. Shape data spaces and the future of data economy with all of us. Become part of the journey, have your say, and, well, really co-create. I'm looking forward to do that. And I hope that we have provided a great overview of where are things which you can reuse. Thank you from my side. And now back to the question. So raise your hands.
Yeah, so Lars, there were no questions so far that we were not able to answer in the Q&A part. But maybe the people still have questions, so feel free to use it.
I have one question. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello, this is Zümrüt from Turkey. Thank you very much for your insightful presentations. They were all very helpful. Actually, I wonder how you tackle privacy issue. Do you use or do you offer any kind of privacy enhancing technology during the building data spaces? I wonder your experience about this, or your if you have any advice, it is very welcome as well.
Sebastian, can you take?
Yes, I would love to, but somehow I think I missed the important point of the question. I had some noise on the line. Sorry for that. Could you please?
No, it's okay. Sure. You know, when we consider data spaces, then the question marks on the privacy issue come default. So I would like to ask that, do you have any offer on the privacy enhancing technology approach to use while building data spaces? Do you have any advice about this? For example, or do you have any experience about this? We see in the literature some approach like federated learning, differential privacy, and such as there are lots approaches. But I wonder your experience about this. Which one is more applicable? Thank you.
That's a great question. So I think all the following shows will be delayed for 2 hours if I answer this question completely. That's a really important question. And maybe with the defensive answer first. So IDS is just a small piece in the puzzle. So we may reduce it to, we are the ones with the connector, and the connector enables you of so many things, because you have this trustworthy environment, we have usage policy enforcement inside, and there you can do a lot of things to really enable data economy, data sharing, data trading, and all those important things. And at the same time say clearly, so these are the rules under which you can use my data. But this is just one part of the story. And there are other things that go on top of this. And this could happen inside a connector or even beyond the connector. And this is when it gets complex. And of course, we are talking about this, we are discussing, we are developing, also including privacy preserving technologies. We have a lot of projects based on this, but then we get so much into the use case, into the details. And this is where I see IDS as a foundation, as a component that enables you to build on top of this additional technologies. Just imagine you receive a data set with a certain policy on top of it. You may not print it, so how can you build it inside your connector? And all those questions. And then we have to use additional technologies inside the connector, on top of the connector. This is where we make a clear link. So that's the defensive part of the answer. It's not our job, but you can include it I think you got the point. But we're doing it. So especially federated learning is an important aspect here, that you cannot easily share everything, because the model that you generate is again data that also have usage policies on top of that. So having use cases, for example, with federated learning, with privacy preserving technologies, this is what we currently do to come up with the answer and to build this comprehensive system. Because also what Lars said about the DSBA, it's not one of us who solves all the different problems. It's a complex thing, and we are solving it step by step. And our job as IDSA is to guide everyone through this and to build this comprehensive picture, how we can use data in the future to make really a business impact out of this. So sorry for not providing you the answer. It's as easy as is. But it's a good question, and this is definitely things that we are working on and have to work on together in the future.
Thank you for the attempt to give this great answer. I do see another hand raised by Robert. I think we should take this one. Obviously not. to shine.
The hand went down again, I think. Yeah.
All right. So there are some few questions in the question section. Answering those. Yeah. Well, please, last occasion to raise your hand. Time is over, unfortunately. So it's always so too little time for Q&A. On the other hand side, I hope that we have answered most of your open questions and all the thoughts you were having about IDSA. I hope that it was a satisfying overview, and furthermore, I hope that you found some hooks to get involved in IDSA or to get further involved. So a lot of you are already with us. So please share the word and everything which you've heard today. Always feel free to get in touch with us. We have a website. You can approach us via all channels, social media. Please also do not forget to join one of our next sessions, so Q&A session tomorrow. Really, there we can have really Q&A in depth and details. The Data Sharing Winter School, a great thing, December 7th to 9th, so 2.5 days, really winter school where you can even earn ECTS credits and great speakers. So Francesco Bonfiglio from Gaia is with us, Anne-Sophie Proust from Atos, the former Finnish president is with us. So really a great composition of speakers which all have their say on data sharing and really reflect the different notions of it. And then finally, shortly before Christmas, so we will also unbox first presents on 16th of December. We will learn more about Catena X. This is massively relying on IDS concepts, on the IDS connector, and this is a great example to show that we provide the open, consensus-based, technology-neutral solution, and then there's an initiative like Catena X, which wraps a lot around it and brings it IDS learnings to life. For example, with the Eclipse DataSpace connector, we will have a real deep dive on that shortly before Christmas. You're warmly invited, and well, I think I can finish the session right here. So thank you to all of you from the head office, all dear colleagues, also Reinhold from the board. That was great overview, and I hope that we can see a lot of you in our work streams, in our bodies, really working on the magic triangle of data spaces. And well, let's make data spaces a success. Let's give impact globally, and well, that will be great. I'm so motivated, and it's great to be in this ecosystem. So thank you from my side. Some final words from you, Reinhold, perhaps?
No, only thank you very much for participating. Thank you much for the team for presenting. Great event, good information. Let's go forward. We can make it happen. That's really true. Great. Thank you very much.
Perfect last words. So see you on one of the next occasions. Goodbye. Stay healthy.
Thanks. Goodbye.